March, President Trump gave an ultimatum. Iran must agree on unconditional surrender or face strikes. He set the deadline of March 21st for a deal. That deadline passed. He moved into March 23rd, then again to April 7th. Meanwhile, the Strait of Hormuz remained closed and global oil prices surged sharply.
After more than 5 weeks of open conflict, the US and Iran agreed to a conditional ceasefire.
Breaking news, we can now confirm that the U.S. and Iranian negotiators have reached an agreement on a 60-day memorandum of understanding to extend the ceasefire and launch larger negotiations on Iran's nuclear program. This is significant. Sources are telling us that it is now awaiting Trump's final approval, and the signing of this agreement would be the most significant breakthrough since the war started. But
Trump tied the passing U.S. strike for the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Straits of Hormuz. Iran, for its part, launched a counter-blockade of the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports beginning on April 13.
As today, Monday 16, negotiations remain completely still. Direct talks it's an ensembled failed Iran foreign minister traveled to Moscow to meet President Putin. The IEA has warned the global oil market will remain served under supply through October. Even if the conflict is resolved next month, WTI crude oil crossed 106 per barrel just yesterday.
Trump has sent contradictory signals, saying that the USA don't need an open strait, then standing with Chinese President Xi Jinping and saying we want a strait open. Most recently, on Thursday, he threatened Iran with quote annihilation if no deal is reached. If the Iran war dominates military headlines, the trade war dominates boardrooms worldwide. The Trump tariffs represent the largest U.S. tax increase as a percentage of GDP since 1993, costing U.S. households an average of $1,500 each in 2026 alone.
In 6-3 ruling on February 20th, the U.S. Supreme Court declared Trump's use of emergency powers under International Emergencies Economic Powers Act to impose tariff unconstitutional. The government had collected an estimate of $166 billion from over 330,000 business money that must now be refunded. Trump immediately pivoted. He imposed a 10% global tariff under Sections 122 of the Trade of Act, 1,974 valid for only 150 years. On April 2nd, exactly 1 year after of the Liberation Day, Trump issued a new executive order clarifying metal tariff. Articles made almost entirely of steel, aluminum, or copper now faced a flat of 50% tariff. On April 20th, U.S. Customs and Border Protection launched the CAPE portal, allowing business to file refund claims for the IEEPA tariff of the Supreme Court declaring illegal.
9 days ago, on May 7, the U.S. Court of International Trade ruled 2-1 that the Section 122 tariff, Trump post-Supreme Court fallback, are also invalid. The administration is fighting in court. The effective U.S. tariff rate stood at 11.8% in April 2026.
In the coming weeks and months, we will pass the largest tax cuts in American history, and that will include no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. It's called the One Big Beautiful Bill, and it will be the biggest bill ever passed in our country's history.
Back in July 2025, Congress passed Trump's flagship domestic legislation, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It is the most expensive law passed since 2012, with a projected 10 years deficit impact of $3.4 trillion. It extended Trump-era tax cuts, directed $325 billion towards immigration enforcement and defense, and made the largest cuts to Medicaid in the program's history, project to leave 10 million more Americans uninsured by 2034. The fiscal year 2026 budget became a political crisis. A partial government shutdown began on January 31st over disagreement on funding for the Department of Homeland Security, especially for ICE and border security operations. The House finally passed a DHS funding bill on April 30, ending a shutdown that had lasted over 2 months. The total federal deficit over the past 12 months reached an estimate of $1.7 trillion.
Immigration has shifted from Trump political strain to growing liability. A March 2026 survey showed his approval among Hispanic Americans fell to 31%, down from the 48% a year earlier. Meanwhile, the One Beautiful Bill funded $45 billion for the new ICE detention centers, 30 billion deportations, and 13.5 billion to reimburse states conduct their own immigration enforcement. The political math is changing heading into November 2026 midterm elections.
Now let's talk about numbers. The Iran wars and the tariff battles have created an extremely volatile backdrop for the United States economy in 2026. Here is where the key indicators stand today in May 16. YTI oil reached 100 per barrel as of yesterday. That is a 70% increase compared to the same time last year. The IEA reported that crude flows through the Strait of Hormuz dropped by approximately 4 million barrels per day in March and April. Brent crude peaked at 138 per barrel on April 7th. Paradoxically, despite the conflict, the US dollar fell close to 2% in April. A strong corporate earnings helped cushion equity markets. The S&P 500 advanced over 10% in April. However, MUFG research warns that the fundamental backdrop for the dollar remains weak, driven by cyclical factors and Trump-related policy uncertainty.
That's true. After the conflict with Iran intensified, oil prices increased around the world because many countries fear problems in the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the most important oil routes globally. This situation created inflationary pressure because transportation, fuel, and production costs became more expensive. Economic analysts explain that when prices rise too quickly, families lose purchasing power and businesses also higher costs. Economic reports show that unemployment increased while inflation continued affecting consumers. Many companies face higher production and transportation costs because of rising oil prices.
I think the government tried to prevent the economy from becoming unstable. But many people are worried because of gasoline and energy prices and because of the living in the USA.
People are suffering, especially people in middle class and low class, cannot afford to be paying gas prices of $4.
Most of the prices for meat and vegetables have gone up.
So, what is the US position in the global environment? Well, let's bring everything together. The United States in May 2026 is simultaneously managing in a military conflict, a legal revolution in trade policy, a history domestic spending battle, and a dollar under pressure. How do we assess its global position? Well, starting with military power. The US launched the most significant Middle East operation since 2003. It eliminated Iran's supreme leader and degraded Iranian military infrastructure.
We have just received confirmation from Iranian state TV that the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is indeed dead.
That is an extraordinary assertion of hard power. But the ceasefire is fragile. Talks have failed. The Straits of Hormuz remain closed, suggesting the military impact achieved, but not a strategic resolution. Now, on trade, the US is rewriting the rules of global commerce. The Supreme Court defeat on IEEPA was a blow, but the administration is finding alternative legal tools. The average tariff rate remains at its highest in over a century. Costs are being absorbed by U.S. companies and consumers, while manufacturing is slowly reshoring. The state gold. On soft powers and islands, the relationship with Europe has been strained. The U.S. withdrew from several international organizations by executive orders in January 2026. BRICS nations, Russia, China, India, and Brazil, are coordinating their response. And yet, Gulf Arab states like Saudi Arabia and the UAE conduct coordinated operations military alongside the US against Iran, showing traditional regional alliances remain partially intact.
Iran condemning U.S. attacks on Iranian vessels in the Strait of Hormuz as a violation of the ceasefire. Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency also saying the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps shut down a U.S. drone and fired at an American fighter jet in Iranian airspace.
So, to have a summary, the United States remains the world's most powerful military and economic nation, but it is operating in a more contested, multipolar world, where legal constraints inform rising debt and unpredictability on its foreign policies are creating new vulnerabilities that its rivals are actively watching. Let's put this in historical perspective.
Iran wants control of the Strait of Hormuz. Would you accept a short-term deal that allows Iran and Oman to control the strait? And would they have to open it immediately, or would you be open to that happening over a period of time?
No, the strait's going to be open to everybody.
And who would control it?
It's international waters. Nobody's going to control it. We're going to watch over it. We'll watch over it, but nobody's going to control it. That's part of the negotiation that we have. They would like to control it. Nobody's going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, and we'll have to blow them up. They understand that. They'll be fine.
Mr. President, thank you. How much economic pressure do you feel to get the Strait of Hormuz open?
Well, you have to understand, the United States has so much oil that we are an exporter of oil. So we have plenty of oil. We're very lucky. We're blessed with the greatest piece of land in the world from that standpoint, and we have more than anybody else. And now when you add Venezuela to it, we have, I think, 64% of the world's oil. And we're getting along very well with Venezuela, by the way. It's being run really beautifully.
The last time oil prices stayed above $100 per barrel was back in 2014. Today we're at $106. And the critical difference is that in 2014, no major shipping strait was closed. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a dot in a map. Roughly 20% of the oil in the world supply passes through it every single day. Every day it stays closed, the world economy bleeds. And the countries feeling the sharpest pain is not United States.
霍尔木兹海峡及其附近水域是重要的国际货物和能源贸易通道，维护这一地区的安全稳定符合国际社会的共同利益。中方敦促各方立即停止军事行动。
There are Japan, South Korea, India, and China, economies that depend on Persian Gulf oil to function. Japan imports over 90% of its energy needs. India around 85%. When the strait closed, they fell at first. We are already seeing full shortage reports at ports across Southeast Asia. That explains why China is playing such a critical role in this crisis situation. This is not just diplomacy, it is energy survival. Xi Jinping needs the straits open because his economy depends on it. That makes a Beijing key actor, even though it is not a direct party in this situation. And that dynamic, where a US military decision creates economic pressures on China, is reshaping the entire balance of powers in the Indo-Pacific. We are watching Iran become a much bigger story than just Middle East.